Today marks what would have been my wife's 53rd birthday. I thought I would be able to kind of chill today, honor her, just chill and maybe think about her and grieve her a little bit. But instead, I get hit up since like 1, 2 in the morning from my wife's mom and her sister, and then into like 9 and 10 in the morning, and then just blasted consistently after that. They wanted some of the ashes of my wife, and I'm not opposed to giving ashes to anybody, and haven't been at all. In fact, I was the one that offered. And yet this narrative was spun by the Texas one, Maddie, that I wasn't going to give anybody any ashes and stuff. And this was like weeks ago. I'm like, I never said that. And Ellie was like, you never said anything close to that. So it's just like, you just spin these narratives, right? And then, of course, they treat me like garbage. Like everybody, you know? Heather's sister faked it for the most part, you know, somewhat convincing that she's a neutral party. She's not. That was clear when we went to the hearing, the protection order hearing 4 days ago or something like that. And I finally got a lawyer, you know, to just make sure the protection order gets in place. And once my lawyer asked for a continuance, Ellie was sitting next to Amber, and Amber's all, "This is ridiculous." I'm like, wow, okay. But today, Amber asks, you know, could we get some ashes or whatever? And I politely was like, I'm not ready to separate my wife's ashes, you know, just yet. I haven't had a chance to grieve. And told her that because of all this Breezy stuff, man, it's like that's the thing that's been taking up most of my time since my wife passed away. Today's October 18th. My wife passed September 3rd. And every day, everything pretty much, like 90% of everything, 80%, it's been about Breezy and trying to coordinate what I need to do and figure out what I need to do to make sure the protection order becomes permanent. Well, I don't recall right now if Amber had responded, but her mom was like, she left me 2 voicemails saying, it's urgent, it's very important, call me back. So I texted her and I said, what's up? And she said something about, I think, the ashes. And I was like, I just texted Amber the information, you know, because I don't want to repeat myself, you know. And they all talk to each other on a minute-to-minute basis anyway. And so then she starts like accusing me of putting Ellie in the middle of stuff and da-da-da-da-da. It's just ridiculous. I'm like, I'm not the one doing that, for one. Because they were texting Ellie when she was asleep. And she woke up to like a voice mail or something, and it was like, I can't believe you're choosing Jason over your own family. And they don't treat her like family at all. But they go through her, they pressure her to get me to give them ashes. And that's not me putting her in the middle. That's them. And Ellie is clearly aware of it. She expressed it to me before I expressed it to her, that she doesn't appreciate being put in the middle, and they're the ones doing it. And I was like, you just tell them to stop. Just tell them to text me only, because I'm the person that they need to go through anyway. But they know I can't be manipulated. And so they try to make her a pawn to pressure me. It ain't working. Ellie's she's not playing that game. And so then I get all these threats from Heather's mom about, oh, you have a history of child abuse, and it's not going to look good for you. And I'm like, I don't have a history of child abuse. So this is, again, Breezy, putting things in her head. And I'm just like, I just can't believe any of this. And even before that, I had texted, because I had to mail out some DCs today. I had to fax them out. So I was at the library, and I was texting Ellie about, like, at this point, I think your grandma's the only one who should be receiving ashes after I've been treated poorly, and now they just want to demand everything from me. I say, since, your grandma, she's being pressured by these people a lot, and I feel bad, so I feel like she should be, like, the only person receiving any of Heather's ashes. And then I get threatened by her. I'm like, okay, now, and I don't want to, I need to make sure I'm not going to be making decisions out of anger and all this stuff. So I'm just like, she keeps sending all these texts and trying to guilt trip me and saying Heather would be more at peace if you gave us all the ashes, not all the ashes, but all of us, the ashes and stuff, so all we want is a little spoonful or something like that. And I'm not yet comfortable separating my wife's ashes at all, because I haven't had a chance to grieve her because of the Breezy stuff. Has been taking up so much of my time. And I texted Amber, I said, until this Breezy situation is resolved, I won't be able to grieve. And I need to grieve before I can make that decision, And I don't recall a response from her at that point, or after that. But then the mom starts, getting angry and texting me all these things, and I didn't respond to any of them, And then she's all, why don't you drop the protection order? That'll be a nice gift for Heather so she can rest easier and stuff. It's like, don't manipulate me. That is going to send me in the opposite direction you would like me to go. And there was, what else did she say? I think what I'll do is I'll have to read them, because I need to, be able to see this coming back to me so that I can not forget about how they disregard my boundaries. They have no respect for me at all. It's just crazy. And I just wanted to spend today just thinking about Heather. And they say, oh, we're all grieving. It's like, no, we're all not, because I haven't had a chance to do that yet. So no, we're not all grieving. You guys are, and you're making demands. I was a very generous person, and trying to let them know that I'm not trying to keep anything from anybody. But then they spun the narrative anyway, like I am, and I'm just like, wow, maybe I should just sit back and just be silent and let all the things that they tell themselves in their heads like just become the manifestation of the thing that, you know, they spin. I don't know what to do really, but I'm definitely not ready to give up my wife's ashes just yet. I don't know what to think. I just don't know what to think right now. It's just too much drama, and I don't know, man. Just trying to do the right thing, but it's like, oh, I think what I wanted to say was something like, I'm very giving, I'm very generous, and I didn't want to like make anyone think they were going to be left out, but they cut me out like completely, and I'm like probably the last person they would want to do that to, but they don't seem to realize it. It's like I'm like the person who's like in a town square just giving stuff out for free, and these are the people that come up to me to make demands that I give them things for free and berate me at the same time. That's essentially what's happening here, and it doesn't make any sense to me. And it is hurtful. It's disappointing because Heather's mom used to text me that she loves me and all this stuff, and she, you know, was the one that signed our marriage certificate and everything. She was with us and loved it, you know, it was great. But now, you know, it's hard to know what's really happening. Like I know what's happening. It's just I would like to have like a detailed account of who's influencing who and who already had a certain sort of disposition. Because now, I mean, just the way Heather's mom is treating me, I'm thinking like she just already kind of like felt a certain way about me. I don't know why. I've been like such a good guy to Heather.
Howdy.
Hello.
Day pass for you?
Yes, please.
Okay.
All right. Is this still $10?
Yeah.
Cool. Been a while.
Oh, that's fair, man.
Right on. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Somewhere peaceful. Think about Heather, but I need to vent this because it was causing me some anxiety earlier. And normally this kind of thing wouldn't affect me, but with everything going on at once, it's difficult to just stay at peace, you know. So I want to come here and think about Heather for a while, but I wanted to always bring her here. But things just... We wanted to come camping here, but they're always so full throughout the year. It's very difficult to get a window because the windows that were available were not available to myself and Heather. And we were gonna like, I haven't been camping since the 80s. And she likes to camp, and we just don't know how to do that on our own. You know, sounds ridiculous, but we wanted to come here and like try out camping, you know, and then kind of like a test, you know, to see like, okay, what did we feel like we needed here so that we can like go all out camping in the mountains somewhere, you know, because it would suck to go to the mountains camping and then realize, oh man, we need this and this and this and this. There's this one spot I'm hoping is available. If not, I'm just gonna have to sit back in the vehicle and continue what I'm doing now. Fishing here since 2018, and the last time before that I went fishing here, God, 2011 or 12, and I caught 63 fish here in like just a couple hours in one spot. And since 2018 I came here every year, like pretty much every day, every season. Never caught any fish. Didn't catch a single fish. And I went 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, I think. But I know I didn't go in 24. And of course this year, no. I was very discouraged. Very discouraged. And I'm gonna go ahead and set myself up here. Alright, I just wanted to get a little background. I don't know how well you can hear me with the traffic. Let me remind myself of these texts. So Maddie was the one that took my wife's Red Bull that I asked him not to out of the fridge. I bought her 3. She took one to work. There were 2 left. And then one disappears from the fridge, and Maddie's on the front deck with the same exact size, but they went to the store, right, to get it. So at 10:14, Heather's sister texts me, "We got Maddie's necklace and would like if you would put some ashes in it, please. These are Heather's children and they deserve some." Well, nobody deserves anything, for one. Second, Maddie doesn't deserve it. It's just entitlement speech, and I'm not into that. So right off the bat, she's like trying to control me with that last sentence. These are Heather's children and they deserve some. So politely I say, I am not ready to separate Heather's ashes yet. I haven't had the time to even begin grieving Heather yet because I've been dealing with so many things. And the situation Breezy caused has taken up most of my time since Heather's passing. I won't be able to begin grieving until at least this Breezy situation is resolved first. She texts, And then she says, "We are asking for less than a spoonful for Maddie." I didn't respond. Heather's mother. At 1:28 a.m. Hey. Then at 9:57. Hey. Then I get a little emoji with a bird saying hi. That was at 9:58. At 10:58, she goes, "Are you going to respond?" And then she says, "ASAP, important." At 12:30, I say, "What's up?" And she says, need to know what is going on. We are all grieving. So I said I just texted Amber info. She responds, okay. Life is short. I responded, yes indeed. Then she texts, so... And then she sends me a picture of my wife's motorcycle insurance policy. Somehow she has it. Saying insurance is due on the motorcycle. That was at 12:43. At 12:46, she says, I think if you drop that protection order, life would be easier. You are hurting all of us. So if you can do that, Heather would rest easier. You are really putting Ellie in the middle. And it's killing me. If you have a heart, sir, Breezy isn't going to hurt you. And with your arrest record of child abuse, looks awful, not to mention the other part, and jail time too. Well, I don't have an arrest record of child abuse. And the other part, and jail time too. Sure, I've been to jail before. I haven't been arrested since 2011, so that's 14 years. And then she says, oh, and if they think they're gonna bring up the my record in court, the judge has already declared that she's not interested in anything other than what happened regarding the protection order. They could bring it up, but it'll just make them look more ridiculous. I can't believe I even have to deal with this. She says, think about it, and maybe you should drop those protection order immediately. I have been quiet about it until now. And then she goes, so... And she says, Breezy has lost her mother of 30 years. Put her feelings in order, not just yours. And today is Heather's birthday. That would be a great heavenly gift to your wife and her daughter to drop the protection order. And let us have Ellie back. She's 21 years old. She can think for herself. And she says, that's how I feel. And that's okay, I get it. You're being manipulated by the other people, specifically Breezy. And then she says, you are killing me, FYI. And why do you need a lawyer for the protection order? Because I need it to make sure everything's done properly and effectively. And then she says, grr. And then at 2:31, which is about 20 minutes ago or so, I need answers. It's funny because nobody gave a shit when I was asking them for just the simple things. Don't steal. Just wait. Don't steal. Please don't steal. Can we all just get together and everybody decide at one time who gets what? That's all I wanted. But nope, none of that was granted to me. None of my requests. They just were disregarded completely. And then so on, now I'm thinking what I suspected would happen all along was Breezy would try to come up with some kind of accusation. You know, that's why I had her kicked out of the house, because if she got in, she was going to concoct some kind of story to get me out of the house so that she can have full reign of the house. So it just proves that my protection order is necessary. Breezy's not going to hurt you, but she's going to try. And I have paperwork, I don't know if I mentioned it already, from when Breezy accused Ellie's dad of molesting her when he didn't. The report clearly has determined that everything she said was a lie. So if the police come up to the house on this child abuse thing, then I'll just show them the paperwork. Did Breezy ever take the child to the hospital since I abused him or whatever? No, because it never happened. So I'm not afraid. You know, the only thing that gets me is maybe the police will just have to ignore what I say and the evidence versus what somebody else says simply because it's a child abuse claim. You know, it's ridiculous. But I'm not worried. I'm not worried. I'm just wrought with having to think of all these things other than my wife on her birthday. But I've been wanting to, well, let me back up. On a different note, I did end up going to a grief group. And it was nice being around people who were experiencing the loss similar, you know. Instead of people who say, like, I'm really sorry for your loss and stuff, and they just don't have the space to give you, to relate to you. I'm sure that they're genuine in their condolence. Yes, that's great. But you need to be around somebody who had lost people. And it was a 2-hour group. And it was nice just to simply be around those people. And understand that the thoughts I have and the experiences I'm having are not outside the norm for grieving people. I need to, well, I'm going to continue. I'm going to go again next Thursday. And I'll continue as long as I can. I think it runs through December. Not through December, but mid-December, I think, is when it cuts off. And I expect then to have a little bit more grasp on how to handle this. I was watching a guy last night whose wife passed. I'm just looking for grief videos on YouTube and stuff, and I came on this guy that you know, he's not stuck, but he lost his wife. They had a business in Paris and she passed away quickly. I think he said 28 days. And I couldn't imagine like seeing your wife fall ill and then watching her suffer. I am grateful I didn't have to experience that, because I just couldn't imagine going through that. It's tough. I had to reach out to that guy, you know, just kind of let him know you're not alone, and he responded in kind, you know, and I appreciate what he's going through. He's still confused. He's got a lot more to worry about than I do. But we're all alone in this together. Because we all know that grief is personal, and it's the personal struggle. It's your own path. But the support from others is, I appreciate it very much. Loss is profound, and I'm still confused. My thoughts aren't completely in order, probably nowhere near. In fact, it's safe to say it's nowhere near organized or sorted out at all. And he has 2 children. No, I think he said he has just one daughter who's grieving in her own way, and he's got to move. He's not in Paris. He's in I don't recall, Belgium or something, but he's got to move back to Paris. And he says he's got so many things that he needs to pack because everything's sentimental, and I understand that. My house is full of sentimental things as well, and just the idea of having to move that out eventually, I just don't know how I'm going to do it. But he has to deal with a language barrier regarding a business, and sorting all of that out. And eventually going back to another country. And that's far more of a weight than I have. So my heart does go out to him, and I wish him the best. But I started to say that I've been wanting to make a video about discovering my wife. I remember when she left for work the previous evening, her hair looked phenomenal. It was still wet from when she washed it, and those shampoo bottles and stuff are still in the tub. I can't move them. But we were standing by the fridge, and I just looked at her hair, the back of her hair, and it was just so perfect. It was so rich in color, and all the waves were perfect. Everything was just perfect. And I had to touch it. I had to touch the back of her hair, and I was like, wow, babe, your hair looks amazing today. And she's all, thanks, you know. And then she came home, and then the drink spilled. I said so in a prior video, and said that I needed to take care of a bankruptcy course. She had asked me, when I go up to bed, will you come with me? And I said, well, I want to finish this course that I had already put off for 2 or 3 weeks. And a deadline was approaching. I never got around to it because Breezy and her wife, and I don't know who else was in the house at that time. I was just like, I got to wait till they leave so I could calm my mind and wake up at the same time, before I could put that calm energy into my wife, massaging her, as I often do, so that she can rest easily. And I remember watching a couple of videos, I think, on YouTube, and I remember I think I cut one short and just thought, I'm just gonna go upstairs now. As I got up off the couch, I took like one step toward the stairs, and instantly this calm totally surrounded me, just calm. All of this in a split second. I took a step, the calm, and then I was redirected to the kitchen thinking, I should make those cheeseburgers that she wanted for lunch now. And I often think about that. Like, what was that calm? It had to be something. It had to be something. And so I went into the kitchen and I pulled out, you know, all the stuff to make her burgers. I seasoned the meat, and I was very thorough, very meticulous about everything. I sauteed onions slowly. I didn't caramelize them or caramelize them, however people say that. I was very deliberate with every step, which is not like what I usually do. Like, I'll rip off lettuce and all this stuff. I'll put onions and lettuce and tomato all in one bag. Not today, for some reason. I delicately put the onions in the bag and I sealed it up and squished all the air out of it. Set that to the side. I took lettuce and I cut off all the undesirable parts. Not like rotten stuff, but like the white, you know. And I got enough on, you know, I got enough of the green and everything. I put a few leaves in a bag, squeezed all the air out. I did that with jalapenos. I did that with, God, I don't know what else I did, but it's still in my fridge. It's still in the drawer on the plate that I put it on. All these little bags. And I slow cooked the burgers. It took like 2 hours initially. So we have the bearded dragon, and every morning I fill up a glass of ice water and I put it on my wife's nightstand. And I got the water, and then I was getting some greens, some vegetables ready to give to the bearded dragon, which was by the bed, near the bed. And Ellie came down at that time, and I recall asking her when the investigators were there, like what time she came down, and she said 11. So I was like, okay, so at 11 o'clock I went upstairs with the water and the greens for the bearded dragon. And I didn't think about it at all. I just walked in, I seen her kind of laying there, like on her right side, kind of, you know, like this. And that's typical, you know. But looking back, I realized like the TV wasn't on, right? It was on, but the screensaver was on. And usually she always has something playing. But it didn't hit me at first. Like, it didn't occur to me at all. And so I had to be more quiet now because the TV wasn't like covering any noise that I might make. And so I opened up the dragon cage, and something on top of the cage fell in and thumped. And I was like, fuck. And so I picked it up and I put it back, and then I fed the dragon, closed everything up, and left the room. And then for like another hour and a half, I continued to, you know, toast the buns and just all these things. And I remember, so that was probably another hour and a half roughly, something like that. So at 11, 12, 1, 2, that was at least another 3 hours. Why? It doesn't make sense to me. And so my back hurt, and so I sat down on the couch, and like a couple seconds later, Breezy comes in through the garage and through the kitchen, and then asked me if I could help help her wife's boyfriend put her toolbox in the truck. And I was like, well, let me get my shoes. And so I went upstairs and I opened the door and I looked at my wife, and I noticed she hadn't moved. And that's unusual because she usually tosses and turns. And I don't know if I usually did this, like looked at her and then looked her up and down, but my eyes, I remember, were drawn to her feet, and they had these little splotches, these dark splotches on her feet. And so I walked up to her back is to me, and I touched her back, and it was cold. But I thought maybe that's just because her back was exposed to the air in the room. And so I didn't want to like overreact, and I'm still not really thinking anything, but something felt urgent, I think. And so before I like disturbed her, I wanted to look at her feet. So I looked closer at her feet, and there were just all these splotches on her feet. And so I like shook her. I was all, Heather, and she didn't respond. And so I pushed a little harder. I was like, Heather, and then I was pushing even more. I was like, Heather, Heather. And I grabbed her left arm and I was gonna pull her back, but then I just realized I gotta call 911. And so I left the room, and Ellie, I guess, heard me, but she was standing outside in the loft, and she was looking at me, and she's all, what's going on? You know, and she looked at me like, is it my mom? And I just didn't know what to say. I didn't want to say anything because I wasn't sure about anything. And so I went downstairs and called 911, and she followed me, and she was asking like, is there something wrong? And I told dispatch the address, and they asked what the issue was, and I was like, I have to go out front. So I went out the front door and I shut the door behind me, and I said, I think my wife passed away in her sleep. And then they started sending someone over. I went in and I just went right up the stairs and threw the phone on the bed. I don't need to be walked through CPR by dispatch. I was just like, it's got to be done. And so I struggled, like pulling her to the side on her back, and I moved the blanket, and I saw like a discoloration on her belly, and I was just like, I gotta do something. And so I went to like tilt her head back, but it was like, it felt like resistance, but I didn't have time to think about it, you know. I was just like, it won't bend back, whatever. And then I pinched her nose closed and I blew into her lungs, and I felt all this gurgling. I heard all this gurgling, and Ellie was next to me and she heard it too. And then I started compressions, and then I probably did 4 rounds of that. And I remember the last time I blew in her mouth, and I let go of her nose, and this mucus came out of her nose, no reaction. And I just remember just staring at her like mouth, and it was like disfigured because it was against the pillow. And I just remember like just staring at her mouth. I didn't want to look at her eyes, none of it. Like, it didn't occur to me. It wasn't like conscious not to, I just didn't. And I just remember, it seemed like an eternity, just staring at her mouth and just like not knowing anything in that moment. Like, there were no thoughts. It was just me staring. And then an officer came into the door, and so I left because he needs to handle it, right? And the paramedics came in. We're all in the front. And they worked on her for a half an hour, and then this female officer came to me, and like almost with like no feeling at all. She was just like, she didn't make it, you know, like I don't know if she was like trying to get a reaction out of me, or if she wanted to like observe my reaction. I just stood there. I was like, I don't know if I had any thoughts at all. And then her mom was like, you're lying. And then everybody started crying, and I tried to hold everybody together and console them and rubbing their backs and hugging people. And Ellie has her own experience too, because she was in the room. And she told me she looked in her mom's eyes and saw nothing, and that haunts her. We talked about that one time. I don't bring it up right now, or to her. We talked about it one time. And I want to get her into the group because they're going to cover that. But she heard the gurgling. She saw her mom. She was in her bedroom while they were in the loft working on Heather. And Ellie didn't know what to do. She was texting her dad saying, "You need to be here." And she opened up the door not knowing, like, can I go down? I mean, what? She just doesn't know. And so an officer was like, "You need to stay in your room." And I guess a few minutes passed by or whatever, and then the officer said, come with me. I want you to close your eyes, and I just want you to let me lead you, basically. And they had to walk her basically over her mother to get to the stairs. And she said something about her having, the officer was like, "I want you to take a big step forward here," you know, because she said like she was stepping over her arm at that point. And right now that's really all I can think about or think of to relay. And it still hasn't hit me. It still hasn't settled in as a reality. You know? I don't know what to say right now.